How many of you would like to learn to talk to police? How many of you would like to learn how to have confidence when you're speaking truth to police and win them over to your side? Well, this is what we're going to be speaking about today, my friends. Welcome to the Freedom Lovers Show. I'm your host, David James Rodriguez, and we're building the voluntary world one relationship at a time. I'm really grateful to have our guest on today because he is a peaceful resolutions professional, a successful business guy, and he's been talking with police for at least 10 years. Sometimes they quit their job, sometimes they thank him afterwards and they leave him in peace. Very successful stories of speaking about morality above the law with this gentleman, and he started peacefulpolice.com. So before we hear about the techniques and all the exciting stuff we're going to learn in this video today, welcome Robert Landen to the show.
Thanks, David. I'm happy to be here, man. I'm ready to make a big change and win some people over and get other people out there winning these cops over.
Yeah.
Okay. If we can get these cops to protect us from the politicians, man, I appreciate that.
Yeah. And that's what I really love, because you actually said after talking with so many police, the police don't like the politicians. And this is what we discovered, you know, like the regular Americans and people, living men and women, are victims of the politicians. The police are victims of the politicians. So we can really find some common ground together. And I think this is what it's about. So we want to learn about the techniques and some of the word tracks that you share with me, very powerful things that I've heard so far. And before we get into that, you want to share a little bit about how you developed this method of talking to police about morality and how you are able to have peaceful interactions with them. I mean, how'd you come up with this idea and this philosophy?
Well, it's actually, my dad started this. He was really good at talking with the police, and I was with him and I helped him, and I was in sales, and we were actually able to save my little brother from a DUI. He smashed up his car crossing an intersection, a median. I'm sorry, hit a car head on, and we're talking to the state trooper. And I got to say, that's where it started. My dad won him over. He actually didn't take my little brother to jail. It was great. And my dad was so good. And I was working it too, working the cop. We were both working him, trying to say, hey, nobody got hurt. Oh, the only one will be hurt is him. He's hurt. And everything will be paid for. And we just really appealed to moral principles, right? I mean, if we sat there and argued law, my brother would have went to jail. So, and then I did it a few times with friends of mine who were in trouble. I talked to the police and I won them over and they left them alone. And it just kind of snowballed from there. I started helping people in court, defending themselves. And then I said, instead of defending yourself, how about you learn how to get the cop to, protect you? If you're a peaceful person, right? If you've done no harm. Okay, right. So you win the cop over, you don't have to go to court. And then it just snowballed from there. And I just keep teaching people how to get cops to get out of the uniform, be a human being, and be peaceful.
That's right. That's beautiful, man. Yeah, because we're all equal, and this is what, we're able to remember from the Declaration of Independence, which is a piece of paper, and we're people who understand the principles of self-ownership and non-aggression. And this seems to be the future for human consciousness. It's not okay to have a monopoly organization use coercion against people and have no accountability. And so we're seeing cops for decades kill people on video. They get away with it. And so what's the first starting point for people? Because there's a lot of stuff. We'll probably have multiple videos because there's a lot to learn here. But just for the basic person who understands about their own self-ownership rights, the gift from God, that your rights come from God or nature, where do you start? What's the starting point that they should understand before they get into this intention to talk with cops? Because we have to talk with cops. Okay, we don't want to point guns at them. That's not going to solve the problem. They're just doing their job. But as we can see through the data, cops have a spousal abuse rate 2 times the average person because they are violating peaceful people. It's hurting their psyche. And so what do you tell people when they're first learning about this? Where do they start if they want to have peaceful interaction with cops and help them understand about the moral principles that are equal and bestowed on all of us?
Well, first you want to start with your intention. What is it you want to do? Do you want to beat them legally? Do you want to show them up that they're wrong? Do you want to, embarrass them? Or do you want to win them over and get them to start protecting peaceful people from the politicians? Right. If you want to win them over, then you're going to really have to learn how to care for another human being and reach out to them. When I see a cop, it pulls me from inside. It's like I'm drawn to go talk to them because they don't know. No one showed them what I know. They haven't had the opportunity to choose. And that's what I ask everybody to do. You want to do something to just start out, is just ask them to choose. Put the peaceful option on the table. Look, I've done no harm. How can you morally justify harming me? Right. And now that you know that there's a peaceful option, right? I always give them a peaceful option. Like, you found me being peaceful. So don't you believe that you should be peaceful too? Fair enough. And the cops look at me and they're like, well, yeah, I guess. I mean, it's hard to say no to something like that. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And even the bad ones, because I record all the time. So I always suggest recording your interaction just to document it. And that's all I've ever done, is done it for documentation. And they know that. So they have to answer. So you're putting them on the spot. Now, I'm not teaching them anything. I'm not telling them anything. All I'm doing is saying there's a peaceful option. Which one are you going to choose? You know? And how can you morally justify choosing the politician's opinions as an excuse to threaten or harm a peaceful person? And if you can't morally justify it here, how could you do it on the witness stand? Right? Imagine you're telling the jury that you chose to use the politician's laws to hurt a peaceful person. And I'm asking you to explain that to the jury. What is it you're going to tell the jury? I do that a lot when I'm talking to the cops, is put them on the witness stand, you know?
Yeah.
But you don't, a lot of them, you don't have to even go that far. I mean, the conversations vary widely when I'm talking to them, you know? It just depends on where they're at. So that's what I mean. This takes, like in sales, if I taught you sales, it would take me at least a week, you know, to hire you and teach you sales, and a week of product and, you know, the company and all that. To learn this, it would take at least a week to teach someone to do it safely. But at the beginning, I would just at least put the peaceful option on the table, ask them to morally justify what they're doing, and if they insist, clarify the threat of violence. Like, if the cop is like, you know, if you don't obey me, blah, blah, blah. Well, what are you willing to do to me? How bloody are you willing to beat a peaceful person to prove your point? I mean, are you going to take a taser out? Are you going to hit me in the face? Are you going to shoot me? I mean, because if you're going to do any of those, I'll be glad to obey for my own safety.
That's
But
right.
again, this is all on the record, and we're going to go on the witness stand. You sure you don't want to go back on that threat?
Right. Right. And I love how
Or
you,
something to that effect. It could be any ways of presenting it, but go ahead.
yeah, just how you mentioned discretion, you know, in our preliminary conversations about, well, when you got the training, you were taught that you have discretion to let somebody go, you know, a peaceful person. I haven't
Right.
harmed somebody, right? So some of the people out there know, for a crime to occur, there must be an injured man or woman, and a speeding ticket or some other infraction, there is no victim. And in fact, they're extorting money from us as revenue generation. And so you use the word discretion. Say, didn't you learn in your training that you can use discretion, and that, you know, it's like they just are ignorant of the moral principles, you know? And you know, you had a great thing when they ask you for your ID. What do you tell somebody or the cop when they ask for your ID and registration, perhaps on like a traffic stop?
Oh yeah, I wish I could, man. I really do. It just goes against my moral principles, and you wouldn't want me to do that, would you? And they're like, what? I said, well, if I obey you, it'd be like condoning threats of violence against peaceful people. You wouldn't want me to do that, would you?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that would
Right.
encourage you to violently victimize other peaceful people. You wouldn't want to do that, would you?
Mm-hmm.
It just gets,
Right.
it gets kind of funny sometimes, because they laugh and agree, and it's kind of hilarious. But they know. I mean, once they see it, they choose it. I mean, except, like, there's evil ones out there. Don't get me wrong. There's
Right.
ones that will ignore all of this and beat you up and whatever. So this is very risky. I
Right.
wouldn't do this unless you're in a peaceful atmosphere somewhere. Maybe catch them at Denny's eating breakfast or something.
Right. 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 I mean, these guys, like I said, they have a license to kill effectively, and it's
Yeah.
not a good thing to say, but qualified immunity, what the heck is this? I mean, this is a diabolical criminal protection racket where they're not held accountable for their actions if they're in fear of
Yeah.
their life. And the police union backs up the 9-year-old girl who was handcuffed in the back of a car getting pepper sprayed. He actually backed that up. So it's like, okay, at what point, my friends, do we say no? And we have to talk with them. And the other analogy that you gave, which I really love, was that imagine they're in the hospital and you're trying to help them, right? Also, visualize a good outcome for them. We're talking to the good person in them. We're not going to bring the our history with the police and say, okay, all police are bad, so you're bad. It's like, no, I'm talking to you. It's case by case. And, there's not a script for one person, but we're talking to the humanity in them, speaking to the good human that's inside that police officer. Can you talk a little bit about that and how it's really important to visualize that they are good and they're just a little bit confused about their own moral code?
Well, most of them are. I'd say the majority of them were understanding. They actually enjoyed pulling up their moral principles. Okay. Once I got the law out of there, every time they bring up the law, I just kind of shoo it away. I'm like, not talking about the law. Just imagine you're off duty. Let's talk like human beings. Sometimes I've had to go that far to get them to just talk to me.
Mhm.
But what I do is I get them by asking these questions, is get them to pull up their moral principles to answer those questions. And that way I'm not telling, because telling's not selling. You don't want to tell them anything. They're going to listen to me anyway. They don't care what I have to say, but they
Right.
care what they have to say. And when they
Mm.
pull up those moral principles, it's tough to shove them back down. Once they
Mm.
realize that they've been the henchmen for politicians, and that they have discretion and they can choose to leave peaceful people alone, it empowers them to actually be the best person they can be.
Mhm.
They feel better about themselves. Every cop I've won over has walked away with a new lease on life.
Mm.
I mean, you got to save them, because yeah, they have the highest rates of divorce. Not only that, but alcoholism, drug abuse, child abuse. They got suicide, murder suicide. And that's because you ask human beings to go around and victimize peaceful people. That rides on your conscience. You got to drink. You got to get violent, because you're ruining people's lives. You're bothering peaceful people who've done nothing to anyone. You're
Mhm.
stealing from them, and that's got to make it. Shit, I would drink. I'd probably do heroin if I had to do a shitty job like that.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
It's
man,
just horrible.
you're numbing your emotions. Humans have this desire for love, and we can remember this as a kid. We're so accepting of everybody, but we learn separation, we learn division through gender, race, all these different things, which actually are diversity. We got to find the common ground, and that is peace. So I love the idea of protecting peace and almost like selling peace to them. They want peace. They don't want to harm peaceful people. Now they've been trained to do it, so sometimes the train overrides their conscience. But how do people go about it if they're afraid? Because you've been doing it for a long time. I would ask you, how many cops have you successfully won over, or how many cops have quit their job, or what's your basic kind of data that you can share with the people, so they know
Right.
that you have a successful track record talking with these officers?
Okay. Well, when I first started out, I was talking them out of their jobs, and then somebody posted on my Facebook and said that if you talk them out of their jobs, it's going to replace them with a younger, maybe more evil person. I said, okay, well, what do I like about them? Well, I like it if, people can call armed men to hunt down rapists and child molesters and murderers and stuff like that. And I've even told cops this after I realized this. I said, look, I'm with you. I'll get guns. I'll help you find and chase these bastards down. But when you threaten peaceful people with violence, I can't support you. You understand why, right? And I always let it in a question so that they can answer it and pull up the answer that they're going to listen to.
Right. So asking
Um,
questions is really important.
yeah, because they don't care what I got to say. They don't care. But
Mhm.
but if you ask them questions and get them to think a little bit, yeah, granted, most of them aren't used to thinking, but once they do, it's a rush. They love it.
Mhm.
I started just winning cops over, getting them to walk away. I had no license, no tag, no insurance, dark tinted windows, and they'd pull me over, and I would just, jump out of the car. I mean, it's a whole thing. I don't want people trying this unless all of it. So I'm just giving you like a quick scenario, and
Mhm.
and and I lock the car, and I have my camera, and then they come up and ask me for my driver's license, and I do that. I can't morally justify doing that, which I told you already. And then I try to get it into, I try that's just to crack them open and see if we could have a conversation and see if I could actually win them over, and that takes longer. Okay. Now you could just learn enough maybe to get them to leave you alone. That would be okay.
Right.
But I would say success rate, I probably had about 20 to 30, and probably won over maybe two-thirds, a third of them got angry, a few of them got nasty, threatened me. One time they caged me, and another time they just, I mean, sometimes you're just talking to a robot and there's just nothing there, right?
Right.
So it's risky,
Yeah.
but it's worth it. You know, every time I get shot down, I think about giving up, but then I'm thinking about all the cops who thanked me, you know, who said, man, I never thought of it that way. Thank you for at least showing me that. It's cool. I'd like
Okay.
to follow up with them, you know, and because it takes more than just that, right? I would like to get a sheriff and flip a whole sheriff's department, you know, get out there in the training and train all the deputies to use their discretion, leave peaceful people alone. And by the way, while you got all this free time, you can go door knocking and raise money instead of forcing people to pay your salary. You
Mhm.
know,
Right. And
it's,
I think this is the opportunity too, because we're at the point now where there's shelter in place orders. It seems like there might be vaccine certificates for travel, maybe some checkpoints, maybe quarantines. I mean, some of the police officers out there, some of you guys got to really draw a line in the sand. And that's why, I'm a fan of a Thick Red Line project, where you guys got to take personal responsibility for your actions. And we want to help you. We want to have you join
yep,
Team People, not be team politicians. And this seems to be the two teams that are forming, just like in middle school when you choose basketball teams or kickball teams, you choose team A or team B. Everyone's going to have to choose. Are you with peaceful people or are you with violent politicians? And they're sending the officers out there in harm's way. And so the officers, they're not bad guys. They're just on the wrong team. And as you said, they don't like politicians either. I mean, who likes politicians? I think they're the least liked profession in the world,
yeah,
because they're extorting people, causing war, having a personal financial benefit by their own legislative actions. And it's not okay what's happening. And this is what it seems to be, a worldwide sovereign awakening. And that is that you own your body. You guys are kings and queens out there, and do whatever you want. Just don't harm another person or their property. And the only time violence is justified is in self-defense of your person or of your property. And so can you talk about the importance of feelings and why you appeal to the humanity and the kind of the emotional aspect of the officer, and any maybe some of the words or some of the phrases you might use to help them elevate their humanity and talk about their feelings and connect on a human level?
you have to repeat that. The call came in and muted you. Go ahead.
Yeah, just talk about the importance of feelings and emotions in the
Oh,
conversation.
well, you know, everything's about feelings. It all comes down to feelings, you know, no matter what you're selling, you know, it's how they feel about it, right? And for cops to for them to give you the time of day, you're going to have to get them thinking about moral principles, because that's not what they're trained to do. And you say about them, you know, hating the politicians and discretion and everything like that, and it just surprised me. It's just like, well, why would you even bother? I mean, obviously you should be protecting people from the politicians. I mean, it all depends on what's going on and who I'm talking to. That's what I mean. It's just so fluid. It's like you have to role play. You got to try this. Have people pretend they're cops and get your ID, and then you practice your comebacks and stuff, you know, until you
Mhm.
get really good at it.
Yeah.
And get out there and talk to the police. Like I told you before, I would love to get a cop or a sheriff on Zoom and show everybody how I do it, you know, how I win them over. Now, that would just be one way of doing it, of course. But yeah, the cops, look, if you had the options put in front of you the way I do it and you're a cop, how could it not feel better to leave a peaceful person, to be peaceful with a peaceful person, right? I
Right.
mean, you really think, okay, well, you broke this law, you broke that law. That's going to make that cop feel good. If it does, it makes that an evil cop, which I said is less than, you know, 2/3 of them. The 1/3 of them were probably pretty bad. You know, evil, I think maybe 5 or 6 or 7 of them out of 30 were just downright evil.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the
Yeah.
odds are low, but be careful. You might run into one of them.
Right. And so this is the conversation, like you want to
Careful.
ask them, as you said, how bloody are you willing to beat a peaceful man to prove your point? And I think if
Yeah.
you say it slow, you say it with compassion, and they start to think about it, and then you actually call out the violence. And I've done this in some of my right to travel encounters, where the window's this low, and they're say, okay, and you see the crazy look in their eye change, and they say, you better open this door, open this window. I'm like, all right, now I'm afraid for my life. I'm gonna
Yeah.
comply. Just please don't push my face into the concrete. Okay, I'm gonna be peaceful. And so the question was, well, what if I don't do that? What are you gonna do? And then they reveal what we're gonna break your
We're
window,
gonna
we're
break
gonna
the
pull
window.
your,
We're gonna do.
yeah.
Then you
Oh,
just
so you're going to destroy my property and harm my person? Okay, so under duress and in fear for my life, in fear for my safety, I'm going to comply. And that's acceptable out there for people because nobody wants to have, glass cut their face or break their windows. We're trying to have a good life and have health and abundance. And then when these officers come and say that to you, now, if you have it on video, ideally audio is good too, but get it on video because you can actually put that on the internet and then you can show that to the world. And that's what's been really amazing for me out here in Santa Cruz and San Jose, California, is some of the videos that I have, I actually ask them some of these questions. I try to stay peaceful. And then the next time I'm pulled over, they'll say, oh, hey, Mr. Rodriguez. And so these guys know who I am, not because I'm like a great guy, but because I'm actually recording the conversation. I'm staying as human as possible with these guys. And I'm beginning to realize that they're just carrying out orders from the politicians and they're not really the bad guys that I thought they might have been. So of course there's bad apples in every profession, but these guys have been trained to not enforce the law but to enforce commands, orders, obedience. You do what I say, versus being a public servant who swore to uphold and protect the Constitution and defend my constitutionally protected rights. So that's a different conversation than upholding the law, where you're, like you said, you're out there protecting, defending people that are being raped or having property damage or some other abuse. We support you guys in protecting life, liberty, and property. But when you're out here doing infractions and code enforcement, now we lose respect for you because I'm the peaceful guy and you're extorting me. So maybe we could do maybe a little bit of role play, Robert, if we could, maybe like on a sample traffic stop. That seems to be the most common places where people would encounter cops. Or what do you think? You want to do like a role play for traffic or any other
whatever you
scenario?
want to do, man. Whatever you
Okay.
want to do. I just wanted to follow up on what you just said. Is that these cops. Um, I mean, you're talking to someone who's does this over and over and over again. Okay, and you try to break that mental state, right, where everyone's obeying, right? And that's why I ask these questions, right? And I always bait them with, "I'll do whatever you want if you answer my question," right? So I bait them with compliance if they can cough up that answer, and that breaks that mental state that they're in of being dominant.
Right.
And I don't like being in the car because I don't want them towering over me. I jump out of the car. I drive until I find somewhere well lit and a camera, maybe at a convenience store or something. And then I get out with my camera and I let them know that I'm recording. And I don't want them towering over me. I want to talk face to face. There's a lot of those little things that I teach, so you can do this safely. I just can't do it in an hour. It takes a long time.
Right. Yeah.
But,
No, we'll just chip away at this
but go
great
ahead.
concept of winning cops over and having them realize that they need to uphold moral principles, not the code, not immoral laws. And this is a conversation that I didn't have for years. Like, what's your moral compass? I'm like, I've never even heard that word before. Moral compass. They're like, yeah. How do you determine what's right and wrong? I'm like, that sounds really important. I wonder if that's why I never heard that in state schools, because then you would see the immorality of compulsory attendance government schools. And that seems to be the case. We've been under mind control for many decades, many generations. And it's time that humanity is rising and awakening to these conversations, and how to stand in our power, not being violent, not being angry. Actually, you said it before, like they're in the hospital and you're trying to help him or help his future victims,
Yeah.
because he is going to victimize other people. So you want to help stop that.
Yeah, I reach out to them. I want to help them. And when you have that attitude, when you're really trying to help, it's really hard to hurt that person.
Mhm.
It's hard for anyone. Even bad guys find it very tough to hurt somebody who's trying to help them. And I
Okay.
don't do it demeaning or look down on them. you know? I mean, moral principles, I had one cop say moral principles are everyone's got different ideas of moral principles. Like moral principles don't matter because they vary. I said, I don't care about anyone else. I just want to know how you can morally justify what you're doing. You're the guy with the gun threatening a peaceful person. I'm just asking you to morally justify that. Fair enough?
Hmm. Right.
Yeah. Yeah, that one
Yeah.
burned a little.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So come with genuine intention. You know, myself, I'm kind of high energy. So when I'm talking with cops, I have to slow it down because I truly want to be on their side. But when they're coming after me, asking for all these things, now I'm learning some of these word tracks from you so that, next time I'm talking with these guys, I am going to try to help them. I am going to try to prevent them from harming me or harming other people in the future. So yeah, let's do like a little kind of sample
Go ahead.
traffic stop, and I'll be the cop, and you can be the peaceful guy going 66 in a 65 zone in this conversation. So okay, we'll come to the window there, and all right, sir, going a little fast out here today. You know, you're going 66 in a 55 zone out here. So I'm gonna need your license and registration.
And look at that. Neither one of us hurt anybody. Isn't that great? Neither one of us hurt anybody doing 66 and a 65. So I'll take it easy. Have a nice day, my friend.
I wish it was that easy, sir. You know, I'm doing my job out here, and you broke the law, and before I let you go on your way, I just want to make sure you don't have any warrants out. So, do you have a state ID or no ID to show me today?
Look, man, I really want to show it to you, but I can't. It just goes against my moral principles. You wouldn't want me to do that, would you?
Well, I probably wouldn't, but this is about, I'm doing my job. You broke the law. It's posted right there. You drove right past it, going 66 and a 55. I'm out here trying to save lives, and you don't even have a seatbelt on as well. So, sir, would you give me your ID, please?
If it didn't go against my moral principles, I would. Are you willing to use violence against a peaceful person to get it?
Well, I'm not going to be violent with you, sir. I'm just asking to
Okay,
identify
well, have a
yourself.
nice day. Take care. Good meeting you. Go out there and protect people from the politicians. I'm with you. I got your back, brother. What else you got?
Well, yeah, he's not compliant. Yeah, send another unit. All
Good,
right.
a bigger class. I like a big room. Bring them on. Dude, I did that once. Actually, I had like 7 or 8 cops in an alley all listening to me, and then their sergeant showed up and yelled at all of us. We all got yelled at.
Well, we're
They were
doing what?
learning though.
Yeah,
What we're doing right here.
just discussing.
Yeah, there were 7 of them asking me questions, and I was answering them. I was asking them questions. They were trying to defend the system, and I was trying to get them to morally defend it. They could always legally defend. They could legally defend anything, but they couldn't morally defend it, and that's where they get stuck. But go ahead. You want to stay in character? I'll keep
Sure.
going.
So yeah,
I'll
so
get you
that was
violent here in a minute.
yeah, exactly. You'll see the glisten in my eyes as a police officer. I've seen it multiple times as you have. All right, sir. Well, we're not going to play any more games. All right, and I'm gonna maybe pulling. Would you step out of the car, please? Or you're already
What
out of
do
the
you?
car.
What? Yeah, I always get out. I always drive to a camera somewhere. So we're in a parking lot with the gas station, and
All
I'm
right.
standing outside. So go ahead. What do you
All
want me
right.
to do?
All right, sir. Well, would you turn around and put your hands behind your back? Just to make sure that you have any weapons, and for my safety, I'm going to put you in cuffs until the other unit arrives.
Well, that sounds like a good idea. Could you turn around and hand me your gun? Because I don't feel safe with you standing here threatening me with violence. Fair enough. Just let me have your gun, and I'll let you search me. Good deal.
It doesn't work that way, sir. I'm the law. I'm the government, and
What is it? What is it exactly? I'd like to
what?
know it and how it applies.
Well,
And by the way, how many of these laws have you agreed to? Did
mm,
you sign off on any of these laws? Do you like politicians? I'm like,
mm.
because it looks like you're using politicians' opinions as an excuse to threaten and harm a peaceful person. So I'm wondering, how much do you love politicians?
Yeah, no, I don't love politicians. They're doing too much out there in Washington, and I'm just trying to do my job, and I got
Well, you have moral principles, right? You have moral principles,
Oh
right?
yeah,
You know right from wrong. You know you have discretion, right? Right? So you can
yeah.
choose to walk away anytime you want. So like If there's a violent person here, I wouldn't want you to leave. Have you seen any violent people? I haven't. Time to go, or you want
Well,
to learn more?
well, you're driving over the speed limit. You can damage, you can hurt some people out here, sir. I'm gonna need to identify you. What's your, just give me, you don't have to show me your ID. Just show me your first and last name and date of birth.
Give me your first and last name and date of birth, and I'll be glad to give it to you. Fair enough? I mean, we're just two guys standing here, right? Two human beings, right? I mean, I don't have a costume and badge on, but I could get one if you want to make it more fair. But right now, we're just two human beings. So I'm asking you to morally justify it. I mean, like, let's say this whole incident goes to court and you're on trial and you're not on trial, you're on the witness stand. And I'm asking you to morally justify choosing the politician's opinions called laws to threaten me with violence over the peaceful option that I gave you. What would you tell the jury?
Well, I'm here to do a job, sir.
What
So
would you
this
do
is,
a private jury? What would you do in a not private, a civil jury? What would you do at a civil jury? I've done this before. You got a nice house, you got a nice car. I mean, what would you tell them? I mean, you have a choice right now. You have discretion. You can walk away. No harm's been done. You can see no harm's going to be done other than your intention. So I'm asking you to be peaceful with a peaceful person. Tell me how that's unfair. I
well, you
mean, it
could,
could be all kinds of ways of
yeah.
doing this. This is just an example.
No,
But
we're
go
just going
ahead.
back and forth. Yeah, for the viewers out there, you can see how challenging it is for me. Because I would, if I was a cop, I'd say, "All right, you win. That's great, great logic. Have a great day, sir." But I'm trying
Oh,
to
I had
play
3
the,
cops trying to sell me on taking the tickets and going to court and fixing all this stuff on my car and getting a license. I had 3 cops trying to sell me on it. And I'm like, why would I want to do any of that crap? I don't want to do any of that stuff. I didn't hurt nobody. Why don't you stop threatening to hurt me? That's all I'm asking.
Mhm.
And they
And
walked away. They let me drive away with no license, no tag, no insurance, no tinted windows, no tickets. Never even showed them my ID.
you were
I mean,
standing outside the car or in the car.
outside. I was outside the car. As soon as I saw him in my side view mirror, I was parked. I saw him walking up behind my truck. And I got out of the car as fast as I could because I didn't want him catching me in the car and towering over me. I'm real big on not giving them any advantage at all.
Hmm.
But go ahead. You want to finish your?
Sure. So okay, all right, all right. So I'm gonna turn to kind of a mean cop here. Let's see if we can proceed anywhere. Sir, give me your ID, or I'm gonna break the window and pull you out.
Not in the car.
Oh,
You
sir,
want me to get back in the car
sir,
and then you can
put
pull
your
me out?
no. Put your hands behind your back now. Do it now.
Wait a minute. You're going to hurt me now? Seriously? You're going to kill me? You're going to shoot and kill me, right? A peaceful person that didn't hurt anybody. Go ahead and explain that. I want to hear your explanation for killing a peaceful person.
Hmm.
Go ahead. You're going to use the law as an excuse.
Hmm. That's good,
I mean,
man.
I'll push back if I have to. If they're yelling at me, I'll yell at them. It's called mirroring, I mirror their attitude. What they give, I give right back to them. If they get
And
all stern, I get all stern.
so out of 30 encounters, you've only been kidnapped and caged one time, and they haven't beat you into a bloody pulp.
No, they did. Yeah, they kidnapped me once in Georgia and beat me half to death and nearly to death in Kissimmee, Florida. And I was going to quit then too, but this had nothing to do with getting pulled over. This was someone at a hotel calling on my dog and the cops showing up and the owner being some kind of crazed maniac from Iran. I don't know. It was a weird situation, but the cops didn't even give me a chance. I couldn't even talk to them. It was violence right out the gate. They didn't even
Oh,
know who I was. I was just some guy in a hotel room.
right.
Georgia was my first fail. That was where the cop was just stone cold, just arrested me for no license tag or insurance. I'm like, in Florida, it's a ticket. You get a ticket. They put me in jail. They locked up my dog and they put my truck in jail too. We all went to jail. I was like, I quit. I'm not doing this anymore. Because I was trying to
Yeah,
win him over. And he was an older cop. I was surprised he wouldn't listen to a word I said. He
yeah.
was just like turn around and all the other cops showed up and I was afraid for my life. That's why I warn people. This works a lot, but not every time. You're
Right.
not going to get an opportunity sometimes. If you're trying to get them to pull up their moral principles and they don't have any, you got to get that flushed out at the beginning. You want to
Right.
know you're dealing with an evil asshole because I don't want anybody to get hurt.
Hmm. So what's your mindset? Because when they are approaching me, I'm just like, these guys have no moral code. This is what I'm already thinking. I'm like, okay, I have to like ask them questions. I mean, I don't know. The intention
Yeah.
is to help them, like you said, encourage them and be positive. So you're literally trying to help them, save them, and kind of resuscitate their spirit, which is kind of dead. Is that right?
Yeah, I'm trying to win them over to do the right thing. They'll feel better for it. Their lives become more peaceful. The whole town becomes more peaceful because all their future victims aren't victimized anymore. I mean, it puts that cop in charge of his own life. He's not just a pawn for the politicians anymore. That's why I try to reach out to them. I'm so passionate about reaching them. It's like, geez, if you could just see this, you would take it. I know you would, but you
Mhm.
got to look at it. Someone's got to show it to you. You got to see that there's peaceful options.
Mhm.
You got to get them to morally justify their behaviors. You got to win them over and then have all these other discussions afterwards. You can talk about all kinds of stuff. I had one cop bring up anarchy. Oh, wait a minute, you're talking about anarchy. I said, no, I'm not. You are. You want to talk about it? Let's talk. you know
Mhm.
I'm be glad to talk. We did. I talked to cops for 30, 40, 50 minutes, and all kinds of issues, but they didn't arrest me. They didn't put me in jail. They didn't hurt me. They were willing to talk, and that's all I'm
Right.
saying is use this method to get them to open up and talk about these things.
Mhm. It seems like one of the things you said is like like kind of let me go or something. Like you have the ability to use discretion, don't you? So you can just let me go, right? Like you're actually giving him
Yeah.
the option of you can use violence or you can let me go. Is that what you use?
Yeah,
Let me
which one
go?
would feel better? Which one would feel better for you? If you use the politician's dictates as an excuse to harm me, or if you're peaceful with a peaceful person, which one would make you feel better? The violence? And you remember, I record, I have a camera. I tell them I'm recording. I have a camera in my hand, so what they say is going to be on the record. So even the ones that are probably bad lie to just get out of that. I kind of boxed them in, right? They got to answer. So
Right.
it's like, yeah, yeah, yeah. And a lot of them do. They walk away just mad that they can't win an argument. And it's not an argument. They just can't answer the questions because they're either too evil or too stupid. I don't know.
Well, yeah. When I have have a conversation with the cops, and it's literally like 60 seconds in, maybe 90 seconds in, they're telling me their spiel, and I say, "Sir, I'm not a driver. I am a traveler." And I ask him, I say, "Do you know the difference between a driver and a traveler?" Is that too confrontational to ask him
Yeah,
that, or is that kind
I
of a red
don't.
herring,
I wouldn't.
unnecessary?
I wouldn't get into any of that. I mean, there's all kinds of ways of arguing, and you can argue those things later if you want to. But when you start talking like that, you're playing their game. You just jumped on their game board, right? Let's argue laws and rules and written crap, and let's see who wins. And I guarantee they'll win almost every time. But if you stay on moral high ground and you try to pull them up from that cesspool of legal and procedural bullshit that's going in their head,
Right.
they'll feel better about themselves. I mean, even if you won on the fact that this word or this ink on this paper says this, it's not a win. You're not winning them over, right?
Mhm.
You're just getting out of their net, but they're
Right. So,
still out there capturing people.
right. So you're appealing to the law rather than appealing to their moral code, their moral
Yeah, I don't like
compass.
fighting. I don't like fighting fictions with fictions.
Right. And this is the Constitution's legitimacy was destroyed, to my knowledge, in 1870 by Lysander Spooner, the Constitution of
Yeah,
No Authority. So some of the people out there, as you hear Robert and I discussing this, there's no legitimacy to people writing something on a piece of paper and saying, now you have to obey me, because it all comes from consent. And so what Robert's is sharing his techniques is that appealing to their moral of code, the goodness, not what somebody wrote over here or somebody wrote over there. Like, what do you think is right or wrong? And it seems like peace and violence is a common topic in your conversations with cops too. Is that right?
yeah. You saw the Joe Lopez video, right? Where he was. I had to do it like 3 times till he finally confessed.
Right. Joe Lopez
And
was the Arizona candidate for
no, no, no,
sheriff,
Florida, Florida. He
Florida.
was running for sheriff for Orlando, and he's a state trooper, Florida state trooper.
Yeah, we'll put
And
that in the description below here so people can watch it.
yeah, that was my first time on camera doing that. And it took about half hour for me to try to find, a good spot to get it in there and start it up, right? Because he was campaigning. So he was looking to impress my viewers, right? He didn't know he was there to be put on the stand and answer these questions.
Right.
And if I'd have had another 20 minutes or so, it probably would have just got worse for him. I mean, he bailed out. And a lot of cops do that. But hey, if they bail out, if they leave, if they get frustrated with not being able to answer, it's still a win. Not a win as in winning them over, but a win as one more peaceful person not being harmed by them,
Right.
you
Yeah.
know?
Right. This is a great point where we're planting seeds. Think of yourself as like Johnny Appleseed for freedom. We're planting seeds. Maybe it will make a difference in the future. Maybe like we didn't win him right now, but later he'll think about it because there's this
Right.
great conscious awakening where we're realizing that you are kings and queens out there, my friends, and you're not bound to some contract that your great 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 grandfather signed. You are bound to contracts that you signed explicitly or verbally, with a handshake or something. But your rights come from God, from nature, from your humanity, not from politicians. And these guys actually swore an oath to protect us. So the fact that they're violating us, this is the
Eh,
right time in history to have these conversations, which is why it's so important to be talking here with you, Robert, about ways to go about it. So one way is to, appeal to discretion, appeal to their moral principles, appeal to peace. And as a businessman, you know the importance of sales. We're actually selling them on peace and not on violence, and even projecting into the future that they're going to be on the witness stand and they're going to testify. Does that technique seem to have some good positive reactions too when they're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be on a witness stand? Okay, you're free to go.
yeah. Yeah. Winning them over is the only way I can see that works. I know all the ways of dealing with cops, every single one of them. I've been doing this for a decade, and this is the only way I would ever use, and it just works. It gets them won over and gets them feeling better about themselves. And if we could get the cops to learn how to do this, if we could just get a couple at one department to learn how to do this, they can work it on their fellow cops, right? And then all those cops can work on the rest of them, right? And try to win them over. And then the real evil cops can be pressured to either turn over a new leaf or get out, right? So in the end, you've got the guys that are being peaceful who are pressuring the bad guys to either be good or see. Right now, it's reversed. It's all the evil ones that keep the peaceful ones silent, that won't turn on the other guys, and they're all afraid to turn in or even work. See, they don't have the words. They don't know how to sell those other cops on being good guys.
Mm-hmm.
That's where we come in. You teach them how to do it, and then they can go and sell those other cops. I mean, I'll sell. I got $100 reward if anybody can hook me up with a cop on Zoom. I'll win them over right on Zoom, so you can see how it's one way of doing it. Can't say the way it's done because it's always a little different, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I could just get one cop to say I can't argue with that. It's absolutely great. I love it, and they have discretion and they don't have to do it. And there's no punishment for them. They can walk away anytime they want, and there's nothing keeping them from walking away. I don't care how many laws you broke, as long as you didn't hurt anybody. There's nothing keeping them from walking away other than you.
Mm-hmm. Right. And another appeal that seems like it would be successful, as I was in character with the cop there, is, well, the politicians. When did you agree to enforce this
Yeah.
code or law by the politicians that you love? That was a great line.
So what I wanted to say was name the laws. How many? You said about the oath. I'm like, I've asked cops that. I said, go ahead and recite your oath. I'd like to hear it. They don't know. If you took an oath, you knew it. I was a Boy Scout and I could recite my oath anytime you asked me, right? None of these guys I've asked could ever recite the oath. They couldn't recite how many laws there are. I asked them, well, how many laws are there? I mean, you're a law enforcer, right? Or I asked them, what do you do? I mean, what's your profession? Law enforcer is usually what they say, law enforcement. Well, then you must know all the laws. So go ahead and tell me what all the laws are, and I'll be like ready to write them down. I'll be like, go ahead, start with number one. Start with city or county, or do you want to go with state and federal and international? You want to start with the first one, or you want to count backwards? How many freaking laws are there? You don't even know. Nobody knows, right? No one ever agreed to this. I even told cop one time, I said, neither one of us ever agreed to this. How about we work together to be peaceful? Fair enough. You know, just forget about that stuff. Forget about the law. Forget about your job. Forget about all of it. You know, just be a peaceful guy. Be a good guy. Be with the way that cops were 30, 40 years ago, you know, and just walk away if no harm's been done. Is that too much to ask? I mean,
Mhm.
these are things I've said, but you could say them in a bunch of different ways, right? Like when I teach people this, I tell them to make it your own, come up with your own words, you know, make it come from your heart. You're really just appealing to them. What would you say to win them over, to get them to protect peaceful people from the politicians,
Right.
right? Because that is going to make you, and just when I taught sales, it's going to make you the best at it, right? If you copy me, then you're going nowhere. I guarantee it. You've got to make it your own. You got to improve it on your own. You got to make it better. You got to role play and talk to cops. And I mean, just call up the sheriff's department if you want and start asking them these questions just so you get good at it.
Right.
And I don't care
Right.
who answers the phone. If it's a secretary, ask them if they can morally justify threatening peaceful people with violence by using politicians' opinions. But use your own words. You don't want to
Right.
use mine.
No, that's a
And
great point.
I'm
Yeah. So yeah, in business and sales, right, you learn kind of from the mentor and then you kind of copy them. And then eventually you kind of veer off and have your own approach because we're all unique men and women on the land. And we all have our own personality. We have our own experiences. We have our own ways of being. And then what you said is, you know, have your own mindset, you know, kind of like how are you approaching it? If you're coming from your heart, I think that's what really is powerful, you know. And so some of the people in my volunteerist community, you know, the people there are starting to realize it's love, you know, and not like romantic love, but there's
yeah,
8 types of love according to the Greek, and we're sending agape love at them. You know, these are all powerful leaders and creators and visionaries. So maybe someone's approach is going to be different from yours, but the philosophy and the intent is still there to help them, to encourage them to be a good guy. Would you ever ask them, you know, sir, are you going to get in trouble if you let me go? Is that too confrontational, or is that a red herring as well? Like, are you going to
I've
get?
actually had something similar to that. I told I was in the whole thing that started this was the cops raided my house and caged me, and that's when I started defending myself in court, and then I helped other people defend themselves in court, and then I started helping people defend themselves from cops. So it all started back then, and the cop said that he couldn't let me go because he would be arrested if he let me go. And I said, well, then we both need to fight this guy or whoever it is. I said, fight the people who are threatening both of us with violence. And that was it for him. They shift changed. They put another cop in there. He couldn't take it anymore.
Wow.
I'm like, I'm like, because he's being threatened with violence, apparently. Because if he lets a peaceful person go, he's going to be locked in a cage, right? So now we're both victims of whoever he's talking about. And I
Mhm.
offered to help him deal with whoever's threatening him, and he couldn't take it. He quit, and another cop came in and took over. You know, so it gets like that sometimes where they just can't deal with it. You know, because you got to admit that if you got to spend 20, 30 years doing this, and then you run into somebody like this who gets you to try to morally justify it, and you can't. Now you can't morally justify 30 years of what you've done. Right now, there's guilt and regret and shit they don't want to look at.
That's right.
Seriously, to get a cop to flip, it really would take like a week on a therapist couch, you know, like 3 hours a day or something, because they're so messed up.
That's right. Yeah, it is. What it's like a midlife crisis, you know, somebody, you know, is in their 40s or 50s or something, and they're like, oh my gosh, I spent half of my working life, you know, working for some big corporation that I didn't, you know, respect. And now you got to wait, like start a new career. And I think this is going to be an opportunity for the good cops out there to actually protect people, maybe start their own organization like Threat Management Center out of Detroit, Michigan, or
Yeah.
other organizations, you know, that you don't have to be like the founder out there. You can be like yourself and really protect people on a like a customer and a provider relationship, you know, like any other business, like a food business. You have customers and you have the owner, the provider. And just the fact that this whole monopoly is been going on for so long, what's the big vision that you would have? Let's say, Robert. I mean, you've been doing this for 10 years, and you've had some successes. You know, in best case scenarios. What would you like to see? Let's say in you know 5, 10 years as we have more conversations like this, and maybe we'll go out in the real world, we'll have some video, we can come back and maybe we can analyze some of our approaches and kind of get your feedback on it. But if we can get, a few dozen, a few hundred, a few thousand peaceful police, what you call investigators, or I don't know, what do you call therapists? This is maybe just resolution, peaceful resolution professionals out there. Do you imagine that this could actually just increase the peace, or maybe shut down police departments? Or what would be the best case scenario, let's say in 10 years, as this technique and this approach to speaking with cops, speaking their humanity, speaking to the moral principles and the desire for peace? What was the best outcome that you can envision for this?
Well, I mean, my short-term goal is I would just love to see somebody out there on video winning these guys over like I do, or better than I do, would be nice. Okay. Long-term goals, I mean, you're looking at peaceful police departments, which opens up competition, right? Because if the police department, if the sheriff and the police, you start with the sheriff, you get all the police on board, you got the whole town's peaceful. This was my goal when I was driving around the mountains in North Carolina. I was trying to find a little Mayberry, a little small town with the sheriff and the deputy, and I was going to flip the whole town. You don't have to pay taxes anymore. You don't have to get a license or tag or nothing. You can still do those things, but no one's going to hurt you if you don't, right? So I was going to make a peaceful town, and then that would open it up to competition, right? Like people like what is Viper Threat Management?
Yeah.
Guys like that could crop up,
Dale Brown,
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Dale Brown. He could have his guys go in there and provide a better service. I mean, I imagine, you're looking at TV and a commercial comes on, or you're looking at Facebook and it's like, there's peaceful police, call this number, so competition, right?
Right.
And the cops that work for the police see a private company with better benefits, and they're more peaceful, and their guys aren't alcoholics and beating their wives and killing themselves. I think I'll go work for them. Right. Now you have options. Now people can call 911, or they can call Dale, or they can call someone else, whoever else is out there advertising for more peaceful, and they can protect them from other ones too, right? Like right now, if the cops attack you, you can't call anybody to protect you from the cops. And in the future, you should be able to. You should always be able to call somebody to protect you from whoever. This monopoly, like you said, is absolutely ridiculous. It keeps everyone hogtied, and it gives the bullies in society somewhere to go to be the bullies that they've always wanted to be. They just line up for that job. And I feel bad for the cops that have good intentions, that wanted to be heroes, that wanted to help people and protect peaceful people. I really do. My heart goes out to those guys. That's why I'm so passionate about winning them over. That's why I just really try as hard as I can to teach other people how to do this, so it could spread wider. Me flipping 30 cops hasn't made much of a difference, but 1,000 people flipping 30 cops, now we're talking good numbers here.
That's right. Yes.
We start winning these guys over, man, and it's gonna be like an avalanche of freedom.
Correct. And the reason we have such good phones and computers is because there's competition. This is called the free market. And the market is just where there's sellers and there's buyers, and they come together without government regulation, government control. And so almost every industry has it except policing, education system, and there's varying degrees of these ones. But the threat management is basically been around for 20 years. None of his clients have ever died. None of his employees have ever died in urban Detroit. And as you said, instead of calling 911, which in Detroit takes 4 or 5 hours to show up, if they do, they call up Threat Management Center, and they're there within 10 minutes. And their agreement in this particular neighborhood, I visited Detroit a few years ago and went on a drive with him and kind of see how he does it. And he patrols the neighborhood, and this neighborhood pays, I think it's, $10 a month per house approximately. And if he shows up, the first 10 minutes is free. And then each minute that he's there trying to resolve the conflict, it costs the homeowner $1 per minute. So there's a natural incentive to get rid of the helper there, the serviceman, to be on his way. So some of you guys who want to maybe become cops or join the military, think about starting your own private threat management situation, or maybe you call it something different. Maybe it's prevention, threat prevention, as he calls it, where there's competition, and instead of calling the monopoly organization, you can call these guys what's going on. And I think that would be a great outcome that we can, get into it. So I believe the future is voluntary, and we got to have these types of conversations. And perhaps someone out there, you want to help transcribe these types of interviews, contact me. We can, use your help. That would be great. And then we can kind of make points of all these, because as we go out and practice this, I'd love for you to maybe give us some analysis on some of the videos, and maybe we can watch some of the good, positive police
Yeah,
encounter
that's
videos.
a good idea.
Yeah, and just do some commentary.
Let's
Say,
do that.
okay, here's what they did. Here's what they did correct and incorrect, because they're humans. And shooting a human is not going to solve the problem. We have to change the mindset, change the emotional connection with these cops, that we're not against each other. It's us against the politicians. And you got some good scripts here from Robert. So thanks for sharing some of this, Robert. Any concluding thoughts for this first session that we're talking about peaceful police interactions, how to win them over, and how to have a successful encounter with police, talking about moral principles, talking about discretion, and appealing to their better nature. Any final words that you want to share as we're wrapping up?
Well, I want to get more people out there doing it, but I want you to be careful. Don't, go out there and try this without training. Contact me. I will teach you for free. Find me a cop we'll do a Zoom, so I can flip them on Zoom. I'll pay $100 if you could find me, if anyone could find me one. I just want other people out there doing this. There's nothing, I can't give you all the information now on how to do it. It's just too much. There's a lot to it. You got to have good eye contact. You got to be able to have your end of mind and the confidence. Even if you have sales experience, there's still a lot to learn, the psychology behind these guys. You got to put yourself in their shoes if you're going to get them in your shoes, and try to make a peaceful resolution. So all I can really say is contact me and I'll teach you how to do it.
That's right. They can find you at peacefulpolice.com. Is that the best place to find you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm on Facebook, Robert Landen. You just send me a message there, probably quicker.
Okay. Yeah, Facebook, his website. Yes, and reach out.
I got to work on peaceful police. There's not much there right now, but if anyone builds websites, hey, knock it out for me. That'd be great.
Yeah, that's right. And so all you tech guys out there, we need your help. So, we can't wear 10 hats all the time. Even myself, making videos and editing and doing all these things. We're doing the best that we can. So if you want to send some donations to Robert or myself or people, we are the guys out there on the front line. We're not going to stay behind the computer screen and just be a keyboard warrior forever. We actually have to go talk with people. And some of you have seen the maskless farmers market videos we've done, or going to Trader Joe's or opening up beaches, whatever it is. We have to engage, because the police aren't the bad guys. They're just lacking this conversation. They're lacking the connection, and they're doing it for money. So if you have some other solutions, make sure you contact Robert and send him some support, or myself, and we'll continue these conversations, because it's taken generations for us to get where we are. As Robert mentioned, back in the day, Andy Griffith days, they would find you driving drunk and just take you home. They wouldn't go ruin your life. They wouldn't go extort you for tens of thousands of dollars, put you in a cage, because it's a health condition. And we got to find compassion for each other, my friends. With this whole coronavirus scamdemic, we're seeing how pharmaceutical companies have no mercy for you, and how order followers are very dangerous. But we know there's good cops out there, and we want to find those guys. If you find someone to get on a Zoom call with Robert, he's going to give you $100. So thank you for that invitation, Robert. You go ahead.
One more thing. Yeah. If you're faced with a cop, if you're pulled over, you're in a situation, feel free to contact me and go Zoom or just a phone call, and I'll talk to that cop. I'll talk to him right on the spot.
Very nice. So then you can have Robert Landen. Yeah, exactly. Be safe out there, guys. We are aware that it can turn badly, but you want to understand your surroundings. And one of the examples that happened to me is there was a new cop, and he approached my window, and I wasn't being sensitive to his energy. So within 5 minutes, he opened my door, pulled me out, cuffed me and caged me, and towed my car. And other times it's taken an hour and a half for them to get to that level, So you want to say, okay, I'm afraid for my life, but this guy, I wasn't paying attention to his energy. So if you see that crazy look in his eye and he's just getting like this, comply. You don't want to have your property stolen. You don't want to spend the night on a concrete slab. It's no fun. However, this is some of the risks that we're out there taking. And this whole tyrannical operation will go away as we step up, have conversations, win them over to team people, team freedom, rather than team politician and team coercion. Because it's not okay to use violence against a peaceful person, no matter what person wrote on a piece of paper, the president, the mayor, the governor, the senator, none of them. We're all equal. And those guys are supposed to be public servants. So it's a great time to be alive and to have these conversations. Thank you, Robert Landen, for spending some time. Check him out on Facebook. Reach out to him if you have some ways to support him. And we're going to be back creating solutions for a voluntary world. That's what we're about in this show. So thanks for joining me on the Freedom Lovers Show. We're taking as much action as we can, build the voluntary world, one relationship at a time, one conversation at a time, especially with the police. So thank you, everybody, for watching. We'll see you next time.
Thank you, sir. Awesome.